This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, hosted by the BatmanUniverse.net. Check out everything related to Batman and the entire Bat family at the BatmanUniverse.net, including news and original content related to comics, movies, television, merchandise, video games, and more. Also, check out some of the other unique podcasts that TBU has to offer. Consider supporting this podcast by becoming a patron on Patreon. Even $1 can go a long way in supporting this content that you enjoy. Look for a link over at thebatmanuniverse.net to offer your support now. And now, on with the show.
Start? I don't feel so good.
You're all right.
I don't know what's happening. I don't know. Hey. I don't want to go. I don't want to go, sir. Please. Please, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Sorry.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Bat-Fans. Yes, we're still here. This is episode 184. My name is Tim, and I'm going to be your host again 2 weeks in a row. I know we've been trying to alternate between me and Dane hosting an episode, but for this one, I have to host twice because my Yankees just got swept by Dane's Oakland A's. And we made a little friendly gentleman's bet about whoever won the series would host this next episode, and I didn't stand a chance, apparently, in that series. They got swept. So the first two games, I knew I would be hosting, but I was at least hoping that they would salvage the series and get one win. But nope, it was pretty much, they were out of it almost pretty early for every game, and it was pretty disappointing to see. So, Dane, I don't even know why I'm doing this podcast with you right now. I just hate Oakland A's so much right now.
Well, I didn't, to be honest, Tim, I did not expect a sweep. I thought maybe 2-1, maybe the Yankees were going to sweep. Maybe it'd be like a 1-2 sort of thing. Like, oh, okay, I guess the A's lost again. But but I was pleasantly surprised. Did not look like the Yankees showed up to the Coliseum.
No, it didn't, which frustrated me to no end because
I thought if you guys had a chance, it would have been in that second game. But yeah, I guess not.
Nope. I mean, Yankees have been one of, if not the best team in baseball, and
they are the best. They are the best team in the AL, at least.
Yeah, them and the Astros are really close, but the Yankees have a better record than them right now. And the only other team who has a better record than the Yankees are the Dodgers in the National League. And the Yankees are actually playing them this weekend, and the Yankees blew out the Dodgers yesterday, which was really nice to see. So,
good.
But yeah, going up against Oakland, I mean, they're a potential playoff team they could face in the postseason. So I was kind of hoping to have them play well against Oakland, but that wasn't the case. But at the same time, too, postseason's a different animal. You never know what could happen. But it was just disappointing. Just like you said, it felt like they didn't even show up for that, and the pitching was just awful.
Yeah, Tanaka, especially
and he's been one of the more consistent pitchers.
And that pitcher, is it in the first game? What's his name?
Who did pitch that first game? I know Happ pitched the second game. And Domingo Germán.
Yeah, Germán. Yeah. Wow, that guy needs to either go in the bullpen or get sent out.
He's actually been their best pitcher the whole season.
Really?
He's the one who kept them afloat pretty early on, and this was actually one of his rare bad performances. He's had a couple, but this was one of the worst ones he's had. Because he's like 16-2 or something like that, or 16-3. But
they said his ERA was really high.
It was actually, his problem is in the third time through the order, his ERA jumps up really high.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
It's just the Yankees usually give him run support.
But no, he has pitched well. It's not like someone who's just benefiting from the run support. He has had a pretty good ERA, but it was just one of those bad starts.
Well, I'm glad he had a bad start. I'm glad the Yankees didn't show up. But it was great to see the Yankees, because I don't watch the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know this, Tim, but you you guys have this up and coming hitter. I don't know if you ever heard of him, called Gary Sanchez.
Vaguely. I
Who
actually know him by his nickname, the Kraken.
oh crap. Yeah, he's Sanchez is really good. Better than I thought he was.
Yeah, I mean, he could potentially be their best hitter in the lineup. Just
Yeah.
sometimes, injuries play a role in the season and the past seasons, him not really clicking. But when he's on, man, he's as dangerous as they come.
Yeah.
And, I mean,
And
then you throw in Gleyber Torres, who's having an awesome season this year.
yeah,
The
two
kid they
homers,
got
right?
from Chapman from the Cubs.
Yeah.
He's having a great year. He's on fire right now. I mean, he hit what 2 home runs in the final game against
Right.
Oakland. He was the offense for that final game. The Yankees scored 2 runs, and it was all him.
Yeah. So and your third baseman, not
It's a
because I know you played two, right?
yeah. It's Gio Urshela is
Or
kind of their main.
Matthias.
What's that?
Is it Matthias or something?
No, I think you're thinking of Urshela.
Am I?
Yeah, because he's the one who's having a
Oh.
surprisingly good year. He was a player who was mainly known for his defense, but his offense is off the charts this year. I mean, he's real close to be qualifying for the batting title, because if he is, he'd be right up there in the batting title. He's like hitting 330, 340, something like that. It's usually him or DJ LeMahieu, who's another player who's having a great season for the Yankees.
Yeah, he's the one who I was thinking of, LeMahieu.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he kind of goes all over the infield, third, second, first. But they just got to get his bat in the lineup, because he's a hitting machine and a clutch player too. Always hits with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, I thought your third baseman, both of them, I guess, were really good. I mean, they're no Matt Chapman, but
well, I think definitely on the defensive side too, because Matt Chapman's really good defensively as well.
And it was really great to see the A's hitting again. I mean, that was the problem before the Yankees, and then before that they played a series with the Astros.
They took 3 or 4 of the Astros too, huh? Right before the Yankees.
Yeah, 3 out of 4. That was the problem. Like the bats weren't showing up, and Chris Davis still wasn't hitting. I mean, I know he had the home run in game 2. Was it whichever game, right? But yeah, his bat just isn't there, and especially Matt Olson. Matt Olson has really stepped it up, and Mark Canha in center field have really stepped it up to kind of make up for the lack of Chris Davis's bat.
Yeah, too bad he's not having a good year, because imagine if it was, their offense would be really good.
Yeah, maybe they could actually compete with the Astros instead of being like 8 games back.
As long as they get in there, the postseason, you never know what could happen. So,
yeah.
Are they do they have a wild card spot right now, since they've won so many games?
I believe Thursday's game, they were tied with the Indians.
I'm actually looking right now, and you are correct. They are tied with Cleveland for the second wild card spot, and only a half game behind Tampa.
Oh, good.
So it's pretty tight.
Yeah, so I'm happy for a sweep. I hope now let's knock on some wood, Tim, because I hope they can get into the postseason via the wild card, because they are not winning the division this year.
Here's a plus too. If they make it into the wild card, they definitely won't have a repeat of last year, because the Yankees are winning the division and they don't have to face them for one game. So even though Oakland swept the Yankees this past series, they haven't had much success against the Yankees in the postseason throughout the course of history. So
especially when you're gonna platoon pitchers.
You start with an opener and have a bullpen game in the postseason.
Yeah, just bullpen.
And you're out of it in the first inning.
Yeah, and make sure your starter is the guy that you sent down early in the year.
Oh, that was the case with who they pitched last year?
Yeah, Liam Hendricks, the closer. He got sent down, and earlier on in the year. And then they brought him back, and he had a really great season. And he's an all-star this past year. So proved everybody wrong.
Yeah, just wasn't an all-star in that wild card game last year.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of which, I've been reading this book about the A's. I read Moneyball,
Mhm.
and that was a really good book. But this book is about the dynasty years back in the 70s.
Okay.
It's called, and I had to look it up because it's really hard to remember, and you'll understand why. It's called Dynastic, Bombastic, Fantastic. So,
Okay.
so it's about uh, uh, Raleigh Fingers and Catfish Hunter,
Uh-huh.
mostly about Charlie Finley, the old A's owner, and how eccentric he was. Like when the A's were still in Kansas City, he paid the Beatles what is essentially $1 million to play a 30-minute concert.
Wow, I never heard about that.
Yeah. Um, just all kinds of crazy things. Lowballing players, no wonder Catfish Hunter became like the first free agent, high paid free agent,
Uh,
because Charlie Finley was trying to lowball him. But now I'm gonna tell this story, Tim, and it's gonna sound like I'm making it up.
okay.
Okay, but trust me, I mean you can look it up, and it is true. So the A's win 3 straight World Series. They're the only other baseball team besides the Yankees to do that.
Yep. It's
Um,
crazy to think about too how the Yankees and the A's are the last two teams to do that, and that's so long ago.
yeah. Um, so they went 3 straight, and uh, like even though they won like 2 World Series, right? This is before they won the third.
Mhm.
They still can't. They still can't get like 5,000 people in a 50,000 person stadium, right? So their attendance is really low to begin with, and after the third World Series in 1973, I think, um, Charlie Finley doesn't want to pay his free agents anymore. So what happens? The Yankees get Catfish Hunter and Reggie, and Raleigh Fingers is gone after that. And they lose all of their stars. So attendance sinks even lower, right? So what does Charlie Finley do? He doesn't invest in the team. He doesn't invest in the stadium, of course. I mean, I didn't even have to tell you that, Tim.
Wow, yeah,
And
even back then.
and even back then, it was 20 years old. Um, so he doesn't invest in the team at all. He's an absentee owner, and like towards the end of the 70s, he doesn't even go to any games anymore. It doesn't matter if the A's make the playoffs. He's not going to any games. He doesn't really care anymore. Um, but like he and so what he does is he cuts down the A's front office to 4 people. So the A
Wow.
the A's front office was run by 4 people on a
No
regular.
analytics team back then.
No analytics team, no scouting department. I mean, who was the scouting department? Like I don't know, but
The general
uh,
manager.
but he does go to one game, and then he sees like this kid breakdancing outside. Like this kid would go to A's games. He lived in Oakland. He would go to A's games, right? And he would breakdance and like for money, for tips, right?
Oh,
And he would buy his dinner because his family didn't come from means, you know he and he would just use that money um to eat, essentially, right? And so Charlie Finley decide like I guess likes the kid, and recruits him to be a ball boy. And the kid's a ball boy, and then Charlie Finley decides to be a absentee owner, so he promotes the kid to essentially run the A's for him
oh man.
while he's not there, right? So he's the one he tells the kid, and this is only like a 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old kid, right? And so this kid is essentially the executive vice president of the A's. and he's the one making decisions. If you called the A's up during that time to talk, like talk about a trade or something, you would talk to this kid, right?
I'm sure that had to make all the other GMs and the executives in the A's organization really happy.
Yeah, and so, like this kid was around the clubhouse, and the players would call him Hammer, right? Like as a nickname. And so that kid
Is this going where I think it's going?
That kid became MC Hammer.
Oh, that's it. Wow. See, I always remember hearing MC Hammer with some Oakland A's connection, but I guess either never really dived into that story or heard much about it, but that's it. Wow. That's
it sounds
crazy.
like I'm making it up, but I am not making it up.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
Maybe he should have stayed in the Oakland organization.
Yeah, so that story blew my mind.
I know, wow.
Also Charlie Finley instituted like ball girls, right?
Okay.
Now you can see them sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Boston had a bunch of great ball girls. The Padres did also. I mean, there's like highlight reels on YouTube. Of these ball girls making like unbelievable catches, right? So Debbie Fields, who eventually started Mrs. Fields Cookies, was a ball girl, and she would take that money that she was paid to buy ingredients so that she could make her famous cookies, and she would test the cookies out on the umpires that came to Oakland.
Wow.
To umpire.
Man, so how many successful, famous people got their start with the Oakland A?
I know. Yeah, so like like that MC Hammer story, I couldn't believe it.
I know, it's crazy to think about. I guess if there was a trade he didn't like or a prospect he didn't want to give up, he would tell the other GM, "Can't touch this."
Yeah. Oh, Tim.
I had to go there. Yes.
Yeah.
Or he makes a successful trade, you just go to Hammer time.
Yeah. Or Charlie Finley was like a really crazy person. I mean, not crazy, just egotistical. Like he wanted orange baseballs.
Okay. Wow,
yeah,
sure, that would have been fun for the players to see in the batter's box.
Yeah. Also, the commissioner of baseball did not like him. Did not like him.
Right, you're saying I can understand why.
Yeah. Was a big advocate for the DH in the AL.
Well, that's one plus.
Yeah. Night games.
Another good thing.
Yeah. Did not know how to market his team.
Apparently not.
Especially coming from the Midwest, where you're. Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but where your fans are mostly white, and then you go to Oakland and your fan base is a mix of people. Like he just didn't have that connection. That was another problem for him. So yeah, crazy story. I don't know how, like, especially reading the book, like Reggie Jackson and Raleigh Fingers and Catfish. Catfish is like the most laid back guy. I'm convinced in all of baseball. In all of baseball history, Catfish Hunter is the most laid back guy. But yeah, like a lot of crazy stories. I don't know how they won 3 World Series, especially with all the infighting going on, especially in the clubhouse.
Well, that was another thing they had in common with the 70s Yankees and one after them.
I know.
Must be Reggie. He's always involved somehow.
Yeah. But,
well, I guess I never know what new Oakland A story I'm going to learn. Oh, that's just crazy. You'd never thought something that I'd ever heard about before.
Yeah, but I was really thinking about it, after reading this book, and like, it's kind of embarrassing being an A's fan in a sense, where Moneyball, you're taking statistical analysis that was brought forth by, a guy that was a night watchman at a pork and beans factory.
That just adds to the story, though. Humble beginnings.
Yeah. I mean, you're building your story. I mean, you're building your franchise around like this statistical analysis that was made by a night watchman, and then with the bullpenning, during the wild card last year, and getting these low budget players, and like all the stories I've just told you about the 70s is kind of like, oh my God, like I wish for once there would be like a great Yankees-esque story, like all these Yankees books are about like the majesty and the dynasty of the Yankees, but for the A's, it's always like these stories like, oh, Charlie Finley once paid the Beatles essentially $1 million to play a 30-minute concert at the old Kansas City Athletic Stadium.
That's just funny to hear you compare their history to the Yankees' storied franchise history.
Yeah.
But at the same time, isn't that part of Oakland's charm and why you gotta love them as a fan?
I guess so. I guess you gotta love them.
I guess it makes when they do win even more special because it always seems unlikely that the A's are winning with the teams they put out there. They just got to get over that hump and actually win a World Series for the first time since 1989?
Yeah, 89.
Or no, was it 90? Yeah, 89. It was
90.
No, it was 89 because the Reds won in 90.
89 because of the earthquake.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That kind of put a damper on their win too, I think, for some of the players.
Yeah. I mean, especially because there was so much loss of life, and they didn't have a parade after, of course, because that you can't really. That would have been in bad taste. So they had one. Was it last year? I think it was. It was either last year, or was it? Is it this past year? I can't remember, but they had like a big celebration.
It would have to be this year because it's celebrating the 30th anniversary.
Oh yeah, 30th anniversary. Yeah. But I did want to ask you, how did the A's look from your end, not as a fan?
Unfortunately, I didn't get to see a whole lot of the games, but what I did see, I think the big takeaway was their offense was surprising a little bit because the pitching, I mean, some of the guys they threw out there, I mean, Homer Bailey, the way he shut down the Yankees seemed unlikely, so I'm not sure if that was a fluke thing or if he's actually been pretty good this season for him. But
he's been having a little bit of a control problem. Like he can't hit his pitches, but
okay, well,
for the most part, he's
didn't matter against the Yankees.
Yeah.
So if anything, just their offense really was pretty good. And like we said before, if they can ever get Chris Davis back to where he was last year, they could have a really good offense. So I don't know. I think their biggest thing or question or going into the postseason they had one was like, will their starting pitching hold up? And you could say that about the Yankees too, because their pitching hasn't exactly been on fire throughout the whole season. So it'll be interesting to see if they ever go up against each other in a division series or something, to who would come out on top. But
you see, that's interesting because the relief pitching, the bullpen, has been the weak point this year.
And that's been the Yankees' strength, actually, is when it comes to pitching, so much better than what their starters have done. So it's almost like they'll be using their bullpen pretty early on in games because that's such a big strength. But I'm scared of that too because you don't want to overuse them.
Right.
Because if you do, they're not going to be effective every time you throw them out there. So starters got to give them some lane. Yeah.
So that's why they brought in a rental player like Homer Bailey, Tanner Rourke. I don't know if you saw him in that third game.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
He was shutting them down too.
Yeah, bad-bodied pitcher, I'd say. He doesn't have that. And I don't know if you saw this, Tim, but Matt Harvey.
That's right, yeah.
He's in the minor leagues.
Well, you got to be excited about that move, dude. That's what's going to put him over the top.
I think they're just curious about his fastball. Like, will he get his fastball back?
It hasn't been back for years, so I don't see why it will now.
Yeah, what happened to Matt Harvey?
I know. He was hurt, but the fall from grace that big. I mean, he was the best pitcher in baseball for, what was it, 2013, 2012, like that course of period with the Mets. Of course, he had the nickname The Dark Knight, which, he should kind of lose that nickname since he's not with the Mets, because that's the whole point of why he was called The Dark Knight, because of being in New York and the Gotham City, so to speak. So when he's with the Angels and now Oakland, he can't really be called The Dark Knight anymore.
Yeah.
And plus, he needed to live up to that title anyway, because we know how awesome the title The Dark Knight is. And you can't distill that upon anybody.
Yeah, right. How was the Coliseum for you?
Did I ask you asking me or Matt Harvey?
Did you enjoy the aesthetics of the Coliseum, seeing the Yankees play?
I've seen it so many times now, and it just doesn't get any better. I just remember the Yankees announcers were making a point about how Oakland should get rid of the bullpen on the field layout. Like one of the last few stadiums that still has that, and it needs to go away.
Well, where else are you going to put it? I mean, can't put it in the outfield. There's nothing there.
Yeah, stick it with the non-working bathrooms. I like the pitcher's nice and warmed up.
That reminds me, another story from that book is, so it's Game 7 of the World Series against the Reds, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the Reds team, with Pete Rose, Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench.
The Big Red Machine.
The Big Red Machine. So, yeah, it's Game 7 of the World Series. And what are you going to do? You're going to teach somebody how to play first base hours before the game starts. Yeah.
That sounds like a way to win a big, crucial game for a championship. That should be successful.
It worked.
Who was the player?
Gene Tennis.
Yeah, never heard of him.
Yeah.
But hey, like I said, it worked, I guess.
Yeah, it worked.
They got the championship.
Yeah, great series, I'd say.
Sounds like a great book you're reading too. So
yeah.
So any of you Oakland A's fans still listening who were like Dane, check out what was the name again?
Okay. I hold on, I gotta look it up because I can't remember.
Yeah. Obviously, I did it either with that.
Dynastic, Bombastic, Fantastic by Jason Turbo. That's Turbow.
That is real last name.
Yeah. He also wrote about I forget the pitcher's name, the Mexican pitcher from the Dodgers. That was
Fernando
really
Valenzuela.
Good. Yeah, Valenzuela. Yeah.
Okay.
He also wrote a whole book about him. So.
Well, I guess it's as good as the Oakland A's book with tons of stories like that. That'll be worth checking out. But I guess moving on from Dane's crazy Oakland A's stories from that book, we can go ahead and move on to our Dark Knight Rises minute-by-minute commentary. And for this episode, we're going to be going from minute 132 to minute 133, a.k.a. the 2 hour and 12th minute mark, to the 2 hour and 13th minute mark. So, as always, go ahead and get your relevant media format, your VHS tape, your Betamax tape, your DVD player, your HD DVD, your laser disc, your film projector, your Blockbuster Video membership card, Netflix physical media, and of course, your VHS to DVD converter. So, you got any of that good stuff? I'll go ahead and give the countdown. Dane, are you ready?
Oh man, I need a second, Tim.
What happened?
I was trying to rewind and I accidentally hit all the way back to the beginning.
I'm surprised that hasn't happened more often when we're doing our commentary.
Yeah.
We made it so far. We really haven't had that issue while we're recording, I should say.
Okay, I'm ready now.
Okay.
All right.
Then I will give the countdown. 3, 2, 1, go. As the cops cheer, is ready for the big climactic battle, the Dark Knight Rises. We made it, Dane.
Yeah, finally.
Should be, as we said in our last episode, should be nothing but action for the foreseeable future in our 1 minute commentaries. And I'm sure you remember, Dane, but this is some of the early leaked footage we've got of just, set footage of filming the sequence out on the street. And I just remember thinking, man, this is going to be crazy and cool to see. And
also, that police chase or the bat-pot chase in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah,
I remember
that's
seeing
right.
pictures from that.
Yeah, like all the green screen effects kind of on the lift and whatnot, kind of hiding that it's going to be flying and whatnot. I just love the chaos in here. You've got cops and you got Bane's mercenaries going at it, Bane taking down enemies, and then Batman shows up in the smoke, taking out Bane's thugs before they meet up. Just so good. But we'll get to that. Because right now the minute is over.
It's weird that this is a fist fight. Like wouldn't
Yeah,
this be a gunfight? Or...
I know you would think, but that's kind of what I like about it. Because,
Yeah,
the cops are kind of in a desperate position without their weapons and being trapped into the sewer for so long, and now they're immediately going into a fight. So
right.
can't wait to talk about it as we move along. But moving on to our feature topic, it is going to be something that got springed off, or actually gave me the idea for it, that, I don't want to say super controversial, but stuff that got Batman fans talking, in particular, Tim Drake, because our feature topic is going to be some of our favorite superhero costume redesigns. We know that's something that happens a lot in comics or within movies or TV shows, but the thing that made me want to talk about that is because Tim Drake recently got a new costume design. It's a cover that debuted on Young Justice number 10, I think when DC released their solicitations, and Tim Drake got a new costume. And Dane, have you had a chance to see it?
I'm trying to look it up right now.
Well, I could send it to you right now if you want.
Okay. Yeah, send it to me.
So I'll wait to hear your reaction to it when you see it.
Okay, let me check it out.
There you go.
Tim Drake redesign. I like it. There isn't much difference besides the color.
It's definitely a different color scheme. It's brown with some black in there. I know everyone's making the joke about it's his UPS costume, which I think is funny. But honestly, I got to say, I'm disappointed with it because,
Really?
When they first announced Rebirth and Tim Drake got his classic Robin costume back, how that was one of my favorite aspects of Rebirth, that they were bringing that iconic costume back. And now that they're changing it, it's kind of like they're going more away from the cool stuff in Rebirth, in particular with Tim Drake. Now, to be honest, I haven't read most of any of the Young Justice comics or kind of where Tim Drake is going since the end of James Tynion's Detective Comics run. But I'm not sure the reason why he's getting a new costume change, but I'm just disappointed that we just got his iconic suit back and now he's going to something different that doesn't resemble anything of Robin. And I think he's still going by the moniker Red Robin, but not really a lot of red in that costume. So I don't know. I don't think it's a horrible costume, but I'm just more disappointed that he doesn't have his classic suit anymore, which is one of my favorites. And you'll hear me talk about as we talk or discuss our favorite costumes. So yeah, seeing this one redesign just made me think, what were some of the best superhero costume redesigns that actually I like better than their original costumes? So that's what's going to be our feature topic for this one. But it was, came out of this reveal of Tim Drake's new costume design. So unfortunately, you won't be hearing his new costume on this list, at least for me. I don't know if it's immediately jumped up to one of your favorites, Dane, but you won't hear it from me.
It's actually my number one, Tim.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
So yeah, as usual, I always got to do a top 5, but I do have some honorable mentions because as I thought about it, there's been some pretty cool redesigns and different costumes that superheroes have had. And I'm not just, for me anyway, I'm not going to limit it to just comics. It's whether it's a movie that had a better costume or a TV show that had a better costume, an animated series, it could be anything. So no limits to any costume that you feel was better than the original. But some of the ones that didn't quite make my top 10 because they're good, but I don't think quite, iconic or greatly surpassed the original one. But some of the ones I have on there would be Nightwing from his Black and Blue going over his, disco look with the gold and the big neck design he had on the suit. It's not really the best debut for Nightwing, but he definitely got a better one with his classic black and blue. And wasn't a big fan when he changed his Nightwing logo to red when New 52 started, but definitely got his back to the blue. Then also Catwoman's redesign by Darwin Cook back in the early 2000s when he gave her, those goggles that really just, I don't know, something about those goggles, something really simple that just added to the character and the design of Catwoman that fits so well and made you think, how come that wasn't been done before? It just fits, her cat look, and at the same time being a thief as well. It's a suit that you would expect a thief to have, but yet still resembles living up to her name as Catwoman. So that was another good one that has stood to this day, because that's the most design you see now for Catwoman. I'm really glad about that because it's awesome. And then some other ones, Green Lantern and the Flash, the Silver Age, because we know how the Golden Age Flash was Jay Garrick, was that red T-shirt with a metal bucket on his head as his helmet, which for the time I guess was okay, but once Barry Allen came in and he got that classic red suit, Flash would have his iconic costume for years to come. And same with Green Lantern. Even though I liked Alan Scott's costume, cape maybe was a little too big, but still a solid design. But then when Hal Jordan came and we got the classic Green Lantern suit that pretty much almost every member of the Green Lantern Corps has, was definitely a step above that. And then on the Marvel side, some other ones that come to mind, Daredevil, when he started off with his yellow costume, it's kind of the same design, but just the coloring was different. But once he got his classic all red suit, you just know that is the look that Daredevil has to have and stick with. So that was another one that was made for the better. And then this might be cheating a little bit, but just almost every X-Men character in the 90s. Once Jim Lee took over, we got that X-Men #1, the iconic comic that brought in the X-Men team that for me is my definitive X-Men roster, with the characters that made up that X-Men and just their designs. When you go with Cyclops losing the egghead look where he has his visor but you could see his hair, which was such a classic look. Wolverine was kind of a different story because he had his original yellow and blue costume, then it got changed to the brown and orange, but then went back to the yellow and blue costume. And I don't know about you, Dane, but growing up, I always thought the orange and brown one was Wolverine's original. And then when he switched to the yellow and blue, that was his new costume. And I thought, oh man, because I first heard and learned about Wolverine when he had that brown and orange costume. So when he got his yellow one, I thought that was the new one, and just think, man, that's way better. But actually it's his original. But definitely a smart move to go back to that one because it is his iconic look. And just the other X-Men characters, how they looked in the 90s with that roster. I mean, Storm, Jean Grey, Rogue, Gambit, Beast, they all just look, that to me, everyone almost has, I guess Generation has the definitive X-Men lineup and design, but those ones from the 90s, just all those characters who made up that team just looked really, really cool and hasn't been surpassed since then, because the X-Men have definitely gone through different designs and costumes, but that one's always going to be the definitive one for me. And then lastly, in my honorable mentions, how can I not have them? Even though you might think it's a small design change, but it's actually pretty big. And that is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles going from just their red bandanas to their colored ones. Like I said, you think it's such a small thing, but when the animated series gave them the colors, Leonardo blue, Donatello purple, Raphael was red, he's the only one who stayed with the original colors, then Michelangelo's orange. It just became so definitive for the Turtles that any incarnation since then, they have to have their color schemes. And it just wouldn't be the Turtles without those colored bandanas. It's just such a staple for them now. And it's part of what makes them, part of the charm of the Turtles, I guess, because you always identify each turtle with their colors. So that was a big design change or I should say, it might not have seemed like a big design change at the time, but it ended up being a huge one and just such a definitive aspect of the Turtles. So those are some of my honorable, if I could talk, honorable mentions before I get into my top 5. I don't know if you had any, Dane, that you want to throw out just as some honorable mentions.
Yeah, just a small one. And I don't know the comics context. I don't know what you call it of it, or the TV show, or even the movie. But that is Spider-Man's black spider suit.
Mm-hmm.
I just, for some reason as a kid, I just thought that was the coolest thing.
Well, I'll elaborate on that when I get to my list because it's in there somewhere. All I can say is
I know the movie implication because I saw that movie.
Oh yeah,
we all saw that movie.
Yes, we did. But glad it's at least in your honorable mentions.
Yeah.
But beginning with my top 5, it's going to begin with a Marvel character, and it is going to be Iron Man, because talk about a drastic change to your costume. Because you remember the first appearance that Iron Man had in the comic was the same suit he had in the beginning of the movie that he built in the cave, just this big, bulky metal gray suit with not much design to it. Just something he had to piece together to get out of there. But that was his first suit in the comics as well. And it was just very simple. It definitely fit with the name Iron Man, but little, I guess, did people know at the time what a big change he would have and become an iconic costume design in all of comics, because it's just such a radical change. It wasn't something that would just, change in color or just a few tweaks here and there. It was a total redesign. And talk about a change for the better. It easily surpasses that original Iron Man costume. The sleek look with the gold and the red, it's just such a great combination of those two colors for a design that makes him look like, a human robot pretty much. And it's gone through variations through over the years, with different variations on the colors, the sleek looks to the helmet, or just the suit design in general. But that classic aesthetic has always remained, that red and gold or red and yellow look to it that, just became an iconic look for Iron Man. And especially, now with the movies, and going to the mainstream and everyone seeing what a cool costume Iron Man does have. And talk about a lot of variations, because even the movies had so many different designs. And I love how in Avengers Endgame, spoiler alert, Iron Man's last movie, but he had his, not original, but once they first made that design in the comics with the red and yellow, the way it looked in that original comic is the way Tony's suit looked in Avengers Endgame. So I thought that was a kind of a cool way for Iron Man to go out on, just kind of being in that original redesign look of the red and blue. So got to give it to Iron Man for my number 5 pick, because it's such a radical change from the original one, but a design that was made so much better.
My number 5 pick is going to be from a video game.
Okay.
That's going to be Harley.
Okay.
I really love that Harley look. Maybe if you just covered up a certain spot a little more, because I don't think she needs that.
Well, should I ask you which game was it? First Arkham, second Arkham?
Arkham City.
Okay.
Second. Yeah, I just like her look. You kind of get rid of that. I don't know what you call it, the jester's hat. Thing with the domino mask. It's a little more practical. It's subtler. I don't know if that's a word. It's more subtle. The red and the black don't pop out as much. And I like how they give her the pigtails, and one is one color and the other pigtail is another color, just like her jester's hat.
Yep.
So I thought that was a really, really good design, and it shows, because they kind of use that image, or the image of Harley in the Arkham games for the Suicide Squad movie. So
you're right, yeah. I mean, Harley's had a lot of different costume redesigns as well, but you're right, that was definitely one of the better ones, because it kind of had that classic color aesthetic that you or associate with Harley, but doing something different with it that worked. So
yeah, right.
Good choice there. And so for my number 4 pick, this is going to be the only Batman costume that's on my list. And we probably could have done a whole episode of favorite Batman costume redesigns, because he's had plenty of them. But this is the one that has stuck with me the most, that I felt worked really well. And this is going on the movie front. And this is going to be Batman's 1989 all-black costume. And it's something where, we talked about plenty of times, even not so long ago when we were doing our 30th anniversary look back at Batman 1989 a few episodes ago, but just how iconic this suit has become. But it's something where, when you think about it, makes you think, how come this wasn't done earlier, before the movie, where Batman was just all in black? Because we know he's a dark character, and black would be something that you think he would use to, move around in the shadows, establish fear against criminals. But it was always, the black and gray, the blue and gray costume in the comics that he wore for so long. But seeing that first image of Michael Keaton's Batman costume, where it was all black, it just blew me away, just how cool it looked. It sent such like a natural fit for Batman to have it, for his costume to have in this movie. And I loved it so much. It works so well on screen. And it's become something where you don't see too much in comics where Batman just has all black, but a lot of, of course, pretty much almost every movie since Batman has had costume that was all black or really dark, close to it, like a dark gray, like in The Dark Knight. But just that color aesthetic just really stood with Batman movies going forward until we got to Batman v Superman, where he had his classic black and gray comic look, which was awesome. But once I saw that 89 costume, all I wanted was every Batman to have that black suit. I mean, I've said it before, how one of my shames of, being a huge Batman the Animated Series fan was that when it was first announced that I got my first look at Batman in the show, I was disappointed that he didn't have the black costume, because I just wanted every Batman to be like the movie as a young kid, being obsessed with them at that time. So that's how much I love the suit. I just wanted to see it everywhere. And it's just a look for Batman that will always have a special place in my heart, and I think will always look cool. And, it's not my all-time favorite Batman costume design, but it's one that's pretty high up there. It's just such a great look. The all black, and you got the yellow oval logo of the bat symbol on the chest. That just makes the costume work so well. So got to give props to that Batman 1989 costume and the costume designer, Tim Burton, everyone involved with making that iconic suit that has stood the test of time as being one of the greatest Batman costumes ever.
Yeah, that's good, because it ties into my next choice, which is
Batman and Robin, right?
Yeah, specifically the silver suit, Tim. No, that's gonna be Batman the Dark Knight suit. The David Finch one. It had that yellow symbol on the chest, but it also had that homage to the classic Batman look with the gray suit. But It also had the black cape and cowl. So yeah, I love that suit. That is, for me, is almost on that level of the 89 Keaton suit. I just love the look of it. It's bulky, it's big, and it pays homage to, like I said, the old suit, but also the black Batman, the Batman that you were just talking about. So
yeah, that's a cool one, and definitely probably the highlight of David Finch's Dark Knight run.
Yeah,
after the stories.
Yeah, but then it got better, Tim. So why don't we focus on the good part of it?
Yeah, that is true. Thanks to Greg Hurwitz, who had who saved that book, really.
Yeah.
All right, so my number 3 pick, and this is one that I feel is an underrated costume redesign, because you don't hear it talked about too much, but I just love it. And that is the Cassandra Cain Batgirl costume. And Batgirl always had a cool costume. Barbara Gordon's look as Batgirl always was cool, and felt it fit with her character, and wasn't exactly copying Batman, but had her own look as well. But you still know it was Bat inspired. So it was always a great costume design. But when Cassandra Cain took over, I just loved how her costume made her seem something like a Bat ninja, because I love costumes. I mean, as much as I love the cowl for Batman, I just love it when masks or helmets cover your whole face to give you. It just makes the character look cooler. And the fact that Cassandra Cain's Batgirl costume, her mask covered her whole face, it just looked really, really cool. And you mix that in with a black suit, maybe drawing inspiration from Batman 89, or was it black or a dark gray? But it was a dark tone, but it just looked really cool. The cape worked really well, but it all comes down to that mask. And Cassandra Cain is a martial arts expert. She's could be a deadly assassin, and the fact that suit kind of captured that as far as having that ninja aesthetic to it, I felt was really fit the character and just made her so awesome. It's a look that I wish would come back. I know she has a pretty cool costume as Orphan, but nothing will compare to that Batgirl costume. And even though Cassandra Cain might not be Batgirl anymore, whether it's Barbara Gordon right now or a future Batgirl, I just hope that looks come back or comes back in some way. Or maybe have, a Batgirl team up where, you got Barbara Gordon, you got Stephanie Brown, Cassandra Cain kind of teaming up as their former Batgirl costumes and Cassandra Cain could suit up in that awesome suit again, that would be amazing. I would just love to see it back in some capacity because I think it's really, really cool and underrated because you just don't see it much or hear it talk about it so too often. And I would love it to have that placed as one of the better costume design because I think it's awesome and just one of the, if definitely the best Batgirl costume, but definitely one of the best Bat character costumes that they've had. I just think it's really, really cool.
Are you ready to be surprised, Tim? Or maybe not that surprised.
Oh, lay it on me.
My next choice is going to be Arrow.
Oh, wow. See, I am surprised.
Yeah. Okay, good. I just never really liked that aesthetic in the comics of the man in tights sort of thing, that Robin Hood thing. So when I first saw Arrow, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I know they're kind of ripping off The Dark Knight, what Christopher Nolan kind of did with the bat suit, making it practical. But yeah, I just never really liked the man in tights, Robin Hood sort of look with the quill hat.
It definitely works in comics, but it'd be hard to pull off, especially with the tone they were setting with Arrow.
Yeah,
if he was walking around in that costume.
Definitely fits the tone of Arrow, the TV show. But yeah, I just like it. It's essentially just a jacket with a hood.
Yeah,
and that's all you need essentially for Green Arrow. So
the only thing I didn't like about his first costume was that it didn't have the mask. He just had to paint his face that made it look like a mask.
You see, I like that.
Really?
Instead of that weird looking Batman and Robin domino mask that comes like 3 feet off your face, that they brought back for Titans. I just think that's a really bad look. I just never liked that domino mask. We're gonna paste this on your face sort of thing. Whereas Arrow, it's just black paint, So
see, I always think about the practical aspect of it. If he's, at a party or a function, some trouble happens, he has to get in his Arrow costume. To me, it would take a long time to get that paint just right, covering your eyes to make sure no one sees who you are. When you can just throw a mask on and get out there to save the day. To me, just one extra step that would cost time when you're getting in your superhero costume.
Well, also, the domino mask would also present a problem because it'd be like, okay, wait, I gotta get out my glue. And then,
it could be one maybe with a string. You just flip it on in your back of your head.
I think if that were a real thing, Tim, it would be held on by more than just a cheap party hat string.
That's all the domino masks I had as a kid were like that.
Oh yeah.
Every time I would pretend I was either Robin or the Lone Ranger, I had this one black domino mask that I think I got actually. It was like a Lone Ranger kit or something like that, where it had the mask, it had like silver bullets, like a toy gun, and I wore that thing to death, both playing the Lone Ranger and Robin. But it was a really good mask. It lasted a long time, but it all stayed on that one piece of string.
Also, the Batman cowls, right?
Yeah,
would just be held on by a string. Like it wouldn't cover like the back of your head.
Nope.
It would just cover the front of your head.
I did like how in Arrow season 2, when he got his domino mask, it was a gift from the Flash. Because even Barry knew, so much better than paint on your face.
Also, the cheapy Darth Vader costume.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it would just be the Vader mask on the front.
You can't spend too much money to give your kids a mask of their favorite characters to play around with. Probably because they'll end up breaking it anyway by using it too much and having fun with it.
Speaking of Star Wars, I was talking with my dad, and my dad doesn't really care about Star Wars. He just really
change that, Dane.
Yeah, he just really likes Spider-Man for some reason.
Which is awesome though.
Yeah, which is still good. But he doesn't keep up with Star Wars. He doesn't know what's going on, right? And then I was talking with him, and then for some reason Star Wars came up, and he goes, how come they changed the name from Star Wars to Star Force? And
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, wait, what? Like, they didn't change the name of the franchise. It's like, yeah, I was looking at something and blah blah blah, and then I saw Star Force, and they were talking about Jedi's and stuff, and how come they changed the name? I was like, oh, okay, wait, like, what were you looking at?
I know. I'm
Right?
curious to hear where this is coming
And
from.
he was walking through Best Buy, and he had seen a a Blu-ray for Star Wars, okay, colon, The Force Awakens.
Oh, man. Still wondering where Star Force comes in here.
Yeah, I guess he just saw Star and Force, and he's like, how come they change the name to Star Force?
So he just completely missed Awakens
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the.
yeah,
That's funny.
yeah,
Well, at least you were there to clear it up for him, Dane.
yeah.
Because we don't want him to go walk around thinking Star Wars is now called Star Force. Well, that's funny though.
I wonder what he would have. I wonder what he would have came up with if he saw the Blu-ray for The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Like,
He might have thought that would be the last Star Wars movie ever.
yeah,
Star Wars,
Last.
the last.
Star Wars The Last. Or Star Rogue.
Star for Rogue One.
Yeah, Star Solo.
Yeah.
Star Han. Oh no, wait, Han
No,
was,
it's
yeah,
just Solo.
yeah. Or Star Story Solo. Right? Star Story Solo, right?
Solo story. That's it.
Yeah.
That's funny. But going back to my number 2 pick, so alluded to this a little earlier, and it is going to be Tim Drake's first original Robin costume. And yes, just has to explain why I'm not too crazy about his new redesign. It's all because this Robin suit is perfect. Yes, it's just perfect. I think that's the best way to describe it because, the original Robin costume that Dick Grayson, Jason Todd had, it fit for a little kid, but, with the little short shorts that he had on and the pixie boots, he knew it had to change going as, the years went by, especially as Robin got older too. And when Tim Drake over, he was going to be more of a teenager. And man, once that costume got redesigned, it had to be like a eureka moment for those involved with the creating of it, and just for everyone who saw it as well for the first time. I know I did. It just clicked. Man, this is Robin for a new generation, or a Robin that's going to be older and one that's going to speak to new fans getting into comics and the characters. And that's how it was for me. And I probably said this before, but my first exposure to the new costume that Tim Drake had was an action figure that I believe was a tie-in for either Batman Returns or 89. I forget which one, but it was part of that toy line. And when I saw that that yellow and black cape, and how it was, a full-length cape, not a short one like Robin always had, it was just, amazing to see. I just can't describe how perfect it was for Robin. You kept the classic look and color design of the original costume, but you just updated it for a new generation, and it was just perfect. It's the best way to blend in the old with the new. You're not, losing any of the classic elements that the Robin costume had, but you're adding new aspects to it that just makes it even better. And, the effects of that costume design were felt across all mediums of Batman. Obviously, the animated series took that design. Batman Forever took that design for their Robin costume. It just continued down the line. And that's why I was first bummed when, Rebirth started and Tim Drake, or actually before Rebirth, when he became Red Robin and he had his first costume there, which, wasn't a horrible costume design, but doesn't match up to his Robin costume. And, well, I should even go back further, because I think as Robin, they got a new costume design where it became more of the all red look instead of the green and red. And just down the line, every new costume Tim Drake had, in my opinion, just got worse and worse and worse, continuing now with his UPS brown outfit. But that's why I was so excited when Rebirth happened and he went back to that classic look, because that is Tim Drake to me. That is his definitive costume. And it just pains me to see it every time he moves on to something else because it just doesn't feel right when he's in another costume. That Robin design is Tim Drake, and that's what I'll always associate with the character. And, I think it's part of the reason why he's one of the more popular Robins. Of course, it's more character driven in the stories he's been in, the personality he has, the way he acts and operates as a Robin and within the Bat family. But that costume plays a part in it as well, I think, to why it just drew people to him in the first place when they saw how great that design was for this new Robin being introduced. So, yeah, that's going to always have a high spot on my favorite, just costumes in general, regardless if it's a redesign or not. It's just a perfect element of the Robin costume. So, yeah, that had to be my number 2 pick on there. I just love it so much. And hopefully it won't be too long until I see it again in current comic stories for Tim Drake, because you know how comics work. They eventually always go back to the classics and what made, characters work in the first place. Hence Rebirth doing that. So hopefully it won't be too long until Tim Drake's back in that iconic costume again.
Yeah, you see, for my number 1, I had to, my number 2 and my number 1, it required like a lot of thinking and a lot of like, okay, but this was the big thing back when I first got into comics, and this is what I really like now. So my number 2 and my number 1, I really had to kind of lay it out and think about it. But I think I've finally come to the conclusion that my number 2 is going to be Batwoman.
I can understand why that would be a tough choice for you.
Yeah, because it's not really a redesign. It's just an updated look, right? It's not a total head-to-toe redesign. It's just a little more updated. There's sort of that pinup girl aesthetic to it. But yeah, besides that, it's just the classic Batwoman look. I mean, there's a lot more red and black, but it's just the classic look. I like. I mean, if you've listened to this podcast, I like what J.H. Williams III did with the look of Batwoman and Kate Kane. I especially like the little aspect that the wig isn't. I mean, it's a wig. It's not her hair.
Yeah.
Because that would be bad, because somebody can just grab onto it and punch her or whatever. So yeah, my number 2, unfortunately, and I'm probably gonna lose my Batwoman card, is Batwoman.
Now, I'm curious to see what your number 1 pick to top Batwoman.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's my number 1 is that was the first character design period that I glommed onto and was like, oh my god, that's the greatest look I've ever seen in any comic, in anywhere really. So yeah.
Yeah, and that Batwoman costume is a really cool costume design. And I will say part of the reason I think I first liked it because it took inspiration from the Batman Beyond costume, at least with the Bat logo she uses. The design of it's pretty similar, and with the red coloring, you just can't help but think of Batman Beyond. So that's another reason why I think it looks cool. But it totally fits with her character. And yeah, good choice. Speaking of Batman Beyond, let me just mention real quick. On DC Universe, the episodes, or at least the first season, their episodes are now in HD. Give me a little preview what the Blu-ray, man, I can't talk on this episode, what the Blu-ray quality is going to look like. And man, it looks really good. I watched 2 episodes last night, and man, I can't wait to get that whole box set, because having the whole series look like that is going to be pretty darn cool. So anyone who has the DC Universe app, go ahead and check out some of those episodes from the first season of Batman Beyond and watch them in the best quality it's ever been in. It really looks cool. So yeah, just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, and speaking of animated series, is there an episode of I don't know if it's the original Batman the Animated Series, or I have a vague memory, Tim, of it's either a Riddler episode or it's a Scarecrow episode where, like, at the end, there's just like a crazy guy. The guy goes crazy, and that's the end of the episode.
Well, there is a Riddler episode called Riddler's Reform, where he pretends to, be a reformed criminal, goes into legit business, but, he can't, lose his bad habits, and he still ends up being a criminal, leaving riddles for Batman. But then he has a trap for Batman that he thinks he can't get out of, and he thinks he kills Batman, but Batman survives. And he's just puzzled to how Batman survived. There is no way. And Batman won't tell him. He just goes, "That's my riddle." And then the end of the episode is just Riddler and Arkham screaming, like, "How did he do it? How, I gotta know. How did he survive?" He's like yelling, and you see the other inmates covering their ears, being annoyed by Riddler. He's just yelling like a madman, wondering how Batman survived his trap. So I don't know if that's what you're thinking of, because he did sound like a crazy guy, just yelling at the top of his lungs at the end of that episode.
Yeah, what's the name of that episode?
Riddler's Reform.
Riddler's Reform.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Like I don't know. I just remember seeing that episode or a episode as a kid. And I was like, wow, that's a dark ending for a children's cartoon show. I don't know if that's it though. I'm not sure.
And of course, there was a scene for the first Scarecrow episode. It ends with Batman, gassing him with his own fear toxin, and he goes crazy there. But that's not like the last scene of the episode, because then he just leaves him in Commissioner Gordon's office hanging on the ceiling fan, which is a great look though. It's visually funny seeing Crane spinning on the ceiling fan that Batman left room, but probably not the one you're thinking of.
Also, I remember being scared of the Two-Face episodes.
You know what? I can understand that if you were a little kid, because those were pretty heavy. Watching those as a young kid, especially seeing how Harvey Dent was in some earlier episodes in that first part, and then seeing him become Two-Face. So
let's put the intricacies of mental illness in our children's cartoon show. That sounds like a great idea.
Hey, that's part of the reason why Batman the Animated Series is one of the best. So. But for my number one pick, Dane, you mentioned it at the outset, but it's my number one, the symbiote Black Spider-Man costume.
Really?
Yes.
That's your number one?
Yes, it is. I love that suit. I mean, Spider-Man's costume is iconic. It's one of the coolest looking superhero costumes ever. And the fact that they can surpass it with an even better one, that to me is why the symbiote costume is my number one, is because it's so cool in its design. It's so simple too. It's just all black with a really cool white spider logo on there. But there's just something about it that works so well. And for me, it even surpasses the original one. It just makes Spider-Man look like an even cooler character. And I just love it so much because any shot in the comic where he's in, he looks awesome. The animated series, the original 90s one, it looked fantastic in there. I remember being blown away thinking, wow, they really captured the essence and why that symbiote costume is just really, really cool. And unfortunately, I can't say the same about Spider-Man 3 and how that black costume looked, because it's pretty much just painted his original costume black, and that's it. Didn't have any of the cool elements that the design in the comics had. But what irks me about Spider-Man 3, just one of the things, I might have said this before, and just talking to you about it, Dane, where there is a shot where I guess they were doing test footage or test costume fittings about the design they're going to go with in Spider-Man 3, and they actually did have the original comic design symbiote look, and it looked really cool, just in that kind of crappy behind the scenes image that was leaked out somehow. But man, it looked cool, and I wish they would have stuck with that for the movie. But man, that design is just, every time Spider-Man has it, whether it's an unlockable costume in a game, I always go to that. That's my default Spider-Man costume. Or he has gone back to it sometimes in the comics. I know the big thing was the Back in Black series in 2007 to tie in with Spider-Man 3. It wasn't the symbiote, but it was just because after he lost the symbiote, even Peter Parker liked the costume so much. He made his own suit that looked like that. And there's some cool there's a cool story where he actually fights Venom in his own homemade black costume, and Venom has the symbiote, of course. And just the visually of those two characters and their similar designs going at it was just awesome. So anytime Peter Parker goes back into that costume, I always love it. And just recently, leading up to Spider-Man, was it 800, I believe, where he actually takes on the symbiote. He takes it back for a little bit because he needed some extra strength and abilities to take down the Green Goblin, who had the Carnage symbiote. And man, just seeing Spider-Man again in the black costume, but having to actually be the symbiote was amazing. So that costume will always be my favorite redesign ever, just because it surpassed an already iconic, amazing, cool costume, something that would seem impossible. So there's one thing I'm still waiting to see in comic book movies, and we've seen a lot of stuff that I never thought we'd get to see in actual movies featuring comic book characters. I'm still waiting to see the classic original symbiote Spider-Man design in a film. And if we can get that somewhere down the line, I'll die a happy Spider-Man fan and comic book nerd. But until then, I just got to stick with the comics and animated series because it's just so cool. I just love how simple it is, but yet it works on so many levels and just makes that Spider-Man an even cooler character when he has it, which is, saying something because he's already such a cool character. But that symbiote costume just adds another layer and element to it. So, yeah, I mean, that's just the look. Like, I hadn't even really gone into the abilities and powers the symbiote costume brings to Spider-Man as well, enhancing his strength, being able to, change to any clothes that he wants just using the symbiote, and just the effect of the symbiote going on him, I always thought was cool. And some, again, missing in Spider-Man 3. But if Venom, the new Venom movie, the one thing it got right, it was how the symbiote worked and how cool it looks. Just, Eddie Brock calling on it to become his costume. Just visually, I just love how the symbiote goes on a character and just becomes a new entity with Venom. So there's so many aspects about that black symbiote that I love. So that's why it's my number one. And I don't know if it'll ever be topped as far as a costume redesign that just so far outpasses the original. And it's just one of my favorite costumes in general. This and just Batman's costume are my two favorites. I don't know which one I like over the other. It's one of those hard decisions that I hate to make that you always somehow force me to do, Dane. When there's two things I just absolutely love and can't decide which is my favorite, but that's how much I love it. So yeah, Spider-Man's black symbiote costume is my all-time number one favorite superhero costume redesign.
Okay, so Vader or this suit?
I knew it. See, I never even compared the two until you actually said this right now.
Exactly.
So, great. Thanks a lot, Dave. Man, they're so different, but yet so cool.
Yeah.
I can't do it. Maybe I'll get back to it at the end of the episode. I need time to think about this.
Okay. That black suit wasn't in the Spider-Man game, was it?
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
That was like the one omission I wish it would be in the PS4 game. But I think it's probably because, they're setting up the symbiote to be a big part of the story moving forward. If you beat the game, you know why.
Yeah.
But the final costume he had at the end where he fight Dr. Octopus, it looks pretty similar to that. I remember I saw some screenshots of, people using the camera feature of the game and posting it on Twitter. I got, the symbiote suit is in it. But then when I looked closer, I thought, oh, no, it's something different. But it kind of gets the job done, sort of. If you're looking for a design that's pretty similar to it, that's the one you would have to go to if you need your symbiote fix.
Yeah, once I got the Stark suit, I didn't use any other suit except for the classic.
Yes, which Stark suit, the Iron Spider or the one he wears in Civil War, his first one?
Whichever the one with the spider legs.
Okay, yeah,
pop out of your back.
The Iron Spider suit. Okay,
yeah,
that one was definitely one I would use to complete some of those, Kingpin missions where you go to the warehouse and you stop them and you need to, rank up your points. That definitely came in handy. But I always use the classic, or not the classic, but the Spider-Man costume he used in Captain America: Civil War that Tony Stark gave him. I just loved how that looked in the game. One of those things where it felt classic but yet new too. So that was my go-to one.
I was talking about the cartoon one.
Oh, that
Yeah,
one's good too.
yeah. It totally doesn't fit in the graphics of
Yeah,
the New York City world of Spider-Man.
definitely pops out at you though. There's something cool about it though, even though it doesn't quite fit.
So yeah, my number one, like I said, I had to battle in my head,
I'm curious to hear what this is.
which one is number one. But I finally settled on this one because it was the first comic. I mean, I had been reading comics before that, before this character's introduction, I should say. But I didn't really have a connection to a character design wise as much as I did with this character, which is uh, Cassandra Cain's Batgirl.
Ah, nice.
Uh, I know she was what, your number four,
Three.
three? Yeah, but I remember seeing her Batgirl suit and was just totally blown away by it with the no exposed mouth area. It was a complete cowl, or it was a cowl, but it had like a patch of fabric stitched
Yeah.
onto it, which I thought was cool. Um, it's really 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 dark. It's darker than the bat suit, I say. Um, and I've said this on the podcast before, but No Man's Land was what really made me a Batman fan. And besides the big story points in in that story, the the one thing I always remember is Cassandra's batsuit, and it's like when I think of No Man's Land, I almost immediately think of her batsuit. Um, and of course, I read her uh, uh, Batgirl's ongoing series and the I forget what it was after that. Um, what was it, Tim?
Yeah, I'm trying to think too, because that was
After it ended.
after the No Man's Land stuff. That's kind of when I fell off comics and wasn't getting much
Oh,
during that time. So,
but anyway, yeah, I remember reading her ongoing series, whatever came after that, and I mean, I know they try to rebrand her as first Black Bat, and then
that's right, man.
or
I forgot about that name. Yeah.
yeah, Black Bat in is it Batman Odyssey? No, not
No,
Odyssey.
not honestly. Incorporated.
Incorporated,
Yeah.
right, right, right. She was the Batman in Japan, right?
Yeah, it's been a while since
Yeah.
I read it, but probably.
Anyway, um, yeah, and they tried to reintroduce her as Orphan, but she will always be Batgirl, Cassandra Cain with that cool outfit, and I wish they they would bring it back. And if I didn't really care about continuity and story and you know how it would look, I would want to see a Cassandra Cain Batgirl movie, live action movie. Uh, but yeah, it's just the one design that I keep coming back to. That I keep kind of like you with the Spider-Man symbiote suit. It's just the one design I keep coming back to. I keep thinking about and what I compare some superhero designs to. Um, so yeah, for me, it's the Cassandra Cain Batgirl. I don't think DC has topped that yet for me. Anyway,
And I am surprised that actually beat out Batwoman for you because
yeah,
I know you've always liked it, but haven't heard you rave about it so much more. I would think it'd be your number one pick, but yeah,
yeah,
I can't blame you. It is, like I said too, it is an awesome look that needs to be brought back some way, somehow. It's just too cool to have it be sitting on the shelf somewhere and not being used.
yeah, and it's just like I said, one of the designs that for me anyway that DC hasn't really topped yet, and I remember picking up No Man's Land when it was coming out and flipping through it really quick, not reading any of the story now, just to see the Cassandra Cain Batgirl pages. Even if she and like some issues, most issues, she wasn't even in it. So yeah,
Yeah,
For me,
well, that just
it's
made it more special whenever you did see it on the
yeah.
comic page.
So for me, it's yeah, Cassandra's Batgirl.
Cool. Yeah. Well, there's no denying it's one of the best.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's our feature topic of our favorite costume redesigns that superheroes have had. They have to do one for villains too, because right now, just off the top of my head, I could think of a couple, namely scarecrows in the animated series. I actually might
Oh yeah.
spoil it as being my number one if we ever do that list. So if we don't get around to that, just know Scarecrow from the new Batman Adventures would be my number one villain redesign. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Well, I mean, you see, the question is, do you count the animated series Joker as a redesign?
for me personally, no,
Yeah.
because obviously how he looks is just facial wise, it's different, but all the aesthetics are there. White makeup or not makeup, but white skin, green hair, purple suit. Not
Yeah.
really much difference in as far as his design for animation, which obviously is going to be different from the comics. So yeah, I wouldn't count the Joker. The Dark Knight now, because of the makeup, I could probably count that though as a kind of a redesign.
Yeah. Well, he has the scars, which is
That's another thing
new.
too. Yeah.
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 And
I think that would
it's
definitely
just
count
Heath Ledger's face, so yeah.
there. So maybe we will have to do a villain at some point, even though we probably gave away some of our picks.
Talia in Rises. Redesign? No.
Not really. I mean, just a wardrobe change really is about, I mean, technically it's all wardrobe changes and the stuff we're talking about, but
Yeah.
it's basically just clothes you can, get anywhere, it seems like. There's nothing too special about it.
Yeah, you see, that's the problem with the Dark Knight trilogy is it's just a wardrobe change, or it's just clothes that you can buy at you can buy it at Salvation Army.
Yeah. I guess one of the negative effects of the grounded approach that Christopher Nolan took with it.
Yeah. It's like, how do you make action figures? I mean, wasn't that a big thing? Like, how do you make, like, they didn't really make action figures because you can't really.
Yeah, and they even had to add characters who aren't even in the movies. I remember Deathstroke coming out as part of the Dark Knight toy line. Everyone was wondering, oh, is Deathstroke going to be in the movie? But yeah, so fun discussion there. If anyone listening want to share your favorite costume redesigns, go ahead and let us know via Twitter at Bat-Fans Podcast, or send us an email at batfanswithoutpants@gmail.com, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there with different picks, and it'd be kind of cool to hear what some of your guys' favorites are. So if you're interested, let us know.
Hey Tim, I just saw our news and discussion topics, and I see what you wrote.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's coming now.
So I'll just be making a sandwich. I'll be right back. in 3 hours.
So I'll see you at the end of the episode then, Dean.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, not much going on as far as the Batman front, as far as big news since our last episode. But as we're talking Spider-Man and my favorite costume design being the black symbiote suit, we got some bad news regarding Spider-Man, and it has to do with the movie Spider-Man and him probably not being in the MCU for much longer. And boy, was I bummed when I heard that, because it happened this week, or this past week on Tuesday, I believe. Reports came out that Sony is not going to, or Kevin Feige from Marvel Studios will not be involved in producing the next solo Spider-Man film, which pretty much means that Disney and Sony couldn't agree on a new deal to keep Spider-Man in the MCU and then work together doing these Spider-Man movies. And how it always been since the first time they struck this deal to get Spider-Man in the MCU, it was always these short-term contracts that they would make. The first time it was just Spider-Man was going to appear in a Marvel movie, which was Civil War, and Marvel Studios would make for Sony a solo Spider-Man film, which was Homecoming. That was it. But it proved to be so successful, they had to do more. So they worked out some new deals where obviously Spider-Man got to appear in Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, and they made a Spider-Man sequel, Far From Home, and they were trying to negotiate a new deal, and seems like that fell apart, which is right now, currently, as we stand, that Spider-Man is leaving the MCU, and I cannot be more disappointed with that, because for the first time since 2004, I think Spider-Man cinematically has been in the best place he's been because there's so many reasons why this version of Spider-Man works so well beyond him just being in the MCU. I mean, got Tom Holland is my favorite Spider-Man in live action now. He's the actor who perfectly captures both Peter and Spider-Man, which is something I couldn't say about Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield. It was kind of one or the other for them. For me, it was Peter or Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker and Andrew Garfield as the better Spider-Man. But Tom Holland nails both aspects of the character. So it's just great. And then seeing Spider-Man be in this world with other heroes, finally something that only sounded like an impossible dream back during the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man days. And once, the Marvel Cinematic Universe got going and then realizing they don't have the rights to him, Sony is doing their own thing. It sounded like Spider-Man mixing it up with other Marvel superheroes would be something that would never happen. And when it did, it felt like a dream come true. It felt seeing something that's, we've seen Spider-Man do in comics and animated series because Spider-Man mixes it up with a lot of heroes. And that's just part of his charm, I think, because he's so adaptable. He can go, toe-to-toe or be on the level of any Marvel superhero. And now we're going to see that on the big screen in live action movies. It just filled me with excitement. And then seeing it work so well right off the bat in Civil War, just how great not only Tom Holland was, but just how fun it was seeing him interact with the other heroes. It was everything I was hoping it would be. And that just continued in Avengers and his solo movies where, he had Iron Man showing up in Spider-Man Homecoming, which was awesome. And then Far From Home, just characters don't even have to be. Nick Fury was the big MCU character who was with Spider-Man in that film. But just the idea of knowing that he exists in a world with other heroes just made it that much more special and something I've always wanted to see with Spider-Man. And now the fact that it looks like it's going to end abruptly, I might add, it's just so disappointing. It's such a darn shame. And what makes me upset about it is that, both Sony and Disney, they both have blame in this. I mean, because how it works is, or the reports coming out is that Disney wanted, more financial compensation for their part in making the solo Spider-Man films for Sony. They're making the movies and they're not really getting any money back in the return. Sony does finance it, but Marvel's doing pretty much the heavy lifting as far as it comes to making the actual movie. And I guess, understandably so, it would make sense they would want to ask for more money in doing their work. And they asked for a 50-50 split on the returns for the next movie. And that's where Sony's like, nope, we don't think so. That's not going to work for us. And maybe that was a little too high for Disney to ask that, and it makes sense for Sony to turn that down. But just to walk away completely and not have any, maybe this did happen right now. I haven't seen too much reports that negotiations continued after that, and they tried to work out a new arrangement as far as, different figures, maybe a smaller figure than 50%. But just the fact that Sony doesn't realize that the success that this Spider-Man has had, I mean, just like at this year alone, he was in Endgame, is now the biggest movie of all time. And then with Far From Home, Spider-Man, that is the biggest Spider-Man movie ever as far as box office returns wise. It's made over $1 billion. And you'd think they would just want to find a way to continue that success and not do anything to change that or jeopardize that, because I don't have much confidence in Sony doing this on their own over the last few movies they put out, which I haven't been a big fan of, Into the Spider-Verse being the exception, but that's an animated movie and, not quite comparable to what the situation is with this live action Spider-Man. So it's just disappointing that they don't realize that or want to try to make this work. To me, it just seems like it's disappointing because with the success of Venom, which, I did not like, as I said on this episode, but obviously it was a big box office success. And to me, I just think they're getting a little overconfident thinking, we had a box office success with Venom. Spider-Verse was an Academy Award-winning movie and critically received well by fans and critics. I think we're okay to take Spider-Man on our own now. We don't need Marvel's help with this. And I just think, that's something they're going to regret. I just don't think they could really successfully pull off doing this version of Spider-Man on their own without the help of Marvel, because it all sounds like they're still going to use Tom Holland, which is great because I would hate it even more so if they decided, we're going to reboot again and get a new actor into this new universe they're creating with Venom. That would be awful. So I think the one thing I'm okay with that it sounds like they're going to continue with their next Spider-Man live action film with Tom Holland and pick up where Far From Home ended, because that ended on a pretty big cliffhanger, and I would hate to see that completely ignored. But at the same time, it's going to be disappointing if they don't work out a new deal and Sony makes the new Spider-Man movie on their own, that they're going to have to ignore so much of what happened in the first two Spider-Man movies being set in the MCU. You know, Spider-Man's not going to be able to mention Tony Stark or any other hero or Nick Fury or anything that's happened before, and it's just going to seem weird. And they can't do it and have it be, you know, still a good Spider-Man film, depending on where they go and what villains they use and the journey Peter Parker takes. So I'm not saying that this film is dependent on the MCU connection to be successful, but it's just going to be weird now that they have to be completely ignored, and it's going to take away a little bit from, you know, the charm of the movie or the series of Spider-Man movies being set in the MCU, because it's such a big factor in the story and the tone of these new Spider-Man movies. And to lose that, it's just going to take a little bit away from this next Spider-Man solo film. So it's just disappointing on all fronts. And, you know, I can understand why Disney would want to ask for a little more, because, you know, just from doing most of the work and sacrificing another movie on their slate, because most of the time they have I think they're looking at 3 movies in a calendar year that they release, and have one of them be a movie that they don't get any money back from it. I can see why they maybe would want to ask for a little more. And at the same time, too, they would help. Reports came out where they would co-finance the next Spider-Man movie with Sony. So they would help with that aspect, too, which I think could kind of offset of Sony having to split more box office returns with Disney in this new deal. So it's just disappointing all the way around. Part of me thinks or wishes Disney can just be happy with the arrangement that they have now, not needing any more money, because let's be honest, they're making tons of money anyway with their other films and Star Wars and whatnot. But I can understand both fronts. The fan of me just to keep Spider-Man in the MCU wants Disney just, you know, don't worry about money. You got enough of it. But at the same time, from a business standpoint, you could see why they would want to get some more compensation for the work they're putting in making these Spider-Man movies. So, but the big part of it is Sony thinking that they could be fine without Marvel's help now. It just seems a little overconfident in my opinion, where they don't have the trust for me yet, thinking that the next Spider-Man movie they do on their own is going to be successful. And I'm just worried they're just going to take all the goodwill that Marvel Studios helped put with this new version of Spider-Man and throw it all away, because I'm worried that Sony's first thing on the agenda to do with Spider-Man on their own is get him in a Venom movie and in that universe. And because that's what they want. That would be a huge draw for people, having Spider-Man to either team up or fight Venom in one of his movies. And as a diehard Spider-Man fan, I would love to see that. But I said at the outset, once this Venom movie got announced, the idea that Peter Parker and Spider-Man is not involved with the origin of Eddie Brock and the symbiote coming together just loses so much of the drama and the aspect of the Venom story that I love so much, that even if Spider-Man and Venom do team up or have a fight, it could be cool and be pretty awesome to see, but it's not going to be the same. It's not going to have the same impact it would have had if the symbiote story originated with Peter Parker like it did in the comics. So even if we do get that, it's not going to be as impactful for me as it would have been, or Spider-Man being in the MCU. It's just not going to have that same effect. And I'm worried continuity-wise, getting a little geeky here, that's, they're going to do something that doesn't make sense. And the continuity for Tom Holland Spider-Man is going to get so messed up, like the X-Men movies, where they contradict each other left and right with each new film, that they would put Tom Holland Spider-Man in the Venom universe and not even explain why, have it make sense that he was in the MCU, but now he's mixing it up with Tom Hardy's Venom in that universe. And it'll just become a complicated mess, which I guess would only affect diehard comic book geeks like us and not so much for the general audience, but it would still be a major bummer for me to see that happen. So yeah, it's just disappointing on all fronts. Spider-Man was in such a great place. We were coming off a high of Endgame and Far From Home. I loved those movies to death and was excited to see where they're going to go with Spider-Man in the MCU. And now it looks like we're not going to see that. And it's such a bummer. But man, there's a lot to this. And I got to give a shout out to My pal Paul Herman and Sean Gerber over at Marvel Studios News Podcast. They do a great job of breaking down the ins and outs of the Sony Disney deal, and why this happened, and the potential of the future of what could be in store for both Marvel and Sony moving forward with this. So definitely check out their latest podcast. They do a much better job of me talking about this whole situation, but I just had to vent a little bit as far as being extremely disappointed, because this is having Spider-Man in the MCU was one of the greatest, most fun comic book movie experiences I've had as a diehard fan, because it sounded like the impossible dream, and now that dream looks to be over. It's not officially dead yet. There are reports saying they're, could go back to the negotiation table and work this out. And even Sony in a statement said that, they're still open to or in the future of them working out maybe a new deal. So never say never, but right now it's just a disappointment to know that it looks like Spider-Man is going to be gone from the MCU for the foreseeable future. And it's just such a bummer after, like I said, the big high we've been on for Spider-Man in movies these last few years. So it was a bad way to start the week. I gotta say, I was probably more mad about it and disappointed than I should be, because it's just a fictional character not being in a universe of films, and it's not like we're not going to get any more Spider-Man movies, and it's not like Spider-Man is dependent on the MCU to be successful. But at the same time, after being a big fan of what they have done with the character in the MCU, I couldn't help but be disappointed about it. So yeah, got to move on though. Things definitely picked up this week though, as far as other cool news stories we've gotten regarding the Star Wars front mainly. But it was hard to, not be disappointed for a few days hearing this. And at the same time, each day I kept hoping, are something going to get worked out? Is Disney and Marvel going to have a surprise announcement at D23 saying they, worked out a new deal just in time? But so far, nothing's happened at D23 on the Marvel front regarding Spider-Man. So apparently not. But I don't know, Dane, were you as disappointed as I was about this? I would imagine probably not, as much I talked about it right now.
Probably not, but I think they're going to work it out, because they're going to realize that they're better together.
Mm-hmm.
Sony's going to realize it's better to be in the MCU, and Disney's going to realize it's better to have Spider-Man be part of their MCU. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, this thing is about making money. And how do they make more money? They work together. So they're going to figure it out, I feel. Well, I mean, this is just a little bump in the road, and they're going to figure it out.
Well, I'm glad you're definitely more optimistic than I am about it right now. But hopefully that optimism can rub off on me and help me be a little more positive about the situation. So
yeah, well, you just got to remember, they're not making these movies and releasing them and promoting them and buying up these properties for you.
Yeah.
They're doing it to make money, and this is what makes money. So, that naturally leads you to the thought that, okay, working together and making this big universe is better than having Spider-Man leave and, having our universe without it, or having Spider-Man without the universe,
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to figure it out. It's just a little setback that blew into this big thing. And like you said, they are still open to talk, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to figure it out. And Spider-Man's going to be in the MCU. I mean, it would be kind of a stupid thing for him not to be, because this version of Spider-Man is so embedded into the MCU, Tony Stark, all these other things. So
I know
they're gonna figure it out, Tim. Don't feel negative about it. They're gonna figure it out.
To quote C-3PO, I'll say, well, I wish I had your confidence.
Yeah, well, it's not the end of the world. The Spider-Man's gonna be in MCU. I mean, they're gonna realize sooner or later that even if let's say the worst happens, and then Sony has to release a Spider-Man movie, and it's a Spider-Man movie without the MCU, they're gonna quickly realize after that this isn't a good idea, and then Disney's gonna realize that oh, it's not the same thing without Spider-Man. So
Hmm. Yeah, just a shame that it has to come to that point. I wish they'd realize that right now, like
yeah,
Sony-wise, thinking, we have something good going here, and to move away from that, might be a little late if they. The last thing you want is to have an unsuccessful movie because of that. Just keep the ball rolling. It's going so good right now, but like you
yeah,
said, at the negotiation table, they're not really thinking about, we got to make fans like Tim happy and keep them in the MCU. That's our number one goal here. It's not that at all. It's about how can we get more money and what aspect is beneficial to us as a company. So, which is why
yeah,
we're in this
yeah.
predicament right now.
It's sort of the ugly side of movie making or entertainment, the entertainment industry, but it is true, and it's better if they work together,
Yeah.
rather than separately. Um, but yeah, like I said, they're gonna figure it out, and you're gonna get your Spider-Man. Don't worry.
I gotta say, the best part about this whole situation is just all the great memes that have come out about
Yeah,
Sony and Disney bickering and Spider-Man being in the middle of it. I mean, what everyone's going to is how appropriate that moment in Infinity War is, where Spider-Man dies and gets dusted and just hugs Tony Stark, saying, "I don't want to go. I don't want to go." Was saying like he's talking about going back to Sony and leaving the Disney or MCU now. Just
yeah,
there's some Star Wars memes mixed in there too. There's a lot of funny stuff. But
yeah. Don't worry, Tim, and all you fans out there that are thinking this is the end of Spider-Man in the MCU. It's probably not. Even if it is, for one movie, they're going to realize that it's better working together than it is separately.
if this is it for Spider-Man in the MCU, it was great while it lasted. Like, it
Yeah,
should be
two
thankful that we
movies.
got, let's see, 5 movies with Spider-Man in the MCU, and all of them I love so much. So better than nothing. And there will always be the probably the highlight of the MCU, because we know the MCU is going to go on for the foreseeable future, and if Spider-Man's not going to be a part of it, there will always be that one moment in time in the third phase of the MCU where Spider-Man was a big factor in it. It was just great to see him there. So kind of look at it that way, I guess.
Yeah,
better to have him in it for a little bit than not have him in it at all.
I bet you, like, I, I don't even know, but like, I bet you the X-Men fans are like, oh, thankfully it wasn't us.
I think most X-Men fans are thinking, oh, thank goodness Disney has the rights to that, so they could be in the MCU now. I still haven't seen Dark Phoenix. I got to miss it in the theater. I haven't heard good things about it, but I'll definitely check it out once it comes out on Blu-ray. Because
Is that the one with? Don't say anything, Tim. Let me think this through. Sansa.
yeah,
Okay.
Sophie Turner.
Yeah, Sophie Turner. I forgot her name. But there's one with Arya, right?
There's supposed to be one called The New Mutants that was supposed to be out in April 2018, I think.
Really?
It just got getting pushed back, reshoots getting rescheduled, and now that Disney has the rights to it, I don't know what they want to do with it. So I might not even come out.
Straight to
So
video.
or just put it all on Hulu or something,
Yeah.
some streaming service.
Oh yeah, they also have that Runaway show, right?
Yeah, which I haven't seen either. Just
Disney Plus.
they probably don't want to saturate Disney Plus with a
Uh,
movie that they're not too confident in. But man,
oh,
speaking of Disney
yeah,
Plus, the
yeah.
things that brought my spirits up for the week after being disappointed with Spider-Man, like I said, the Star Wars news. Oh boy, we're getting it, Dane. Talk about another dream come true. It's like something I thought wouldn't happen for a while. Obi-Wan is getting his TV series, and Ewan McGregor is back. God, how awesome is that, man? How awesome is that? I
I
mean,
I I I guess I guess you're speechless about this, Tim? Or do you have another 3 hour, not rant, but praise for
well, that'll probably be on the Saga Continues podcast, but that'll be
Oh,
3 hours.
okay.
But the one bummer about it is that it got reported through all the trades a week ago that Ewan McGregor was coming back as Obi-Wan. And we just kept hearing reports and rumors for this so long. It was going to be a movie, but now it turned into a TV show. And Ewan McGregor would get asked about it pretty much ever since Disney bought Lucasfilm. People would ask him, and he'd always have to play coy about it. So the rumblings were always there. But I will say the fact that it got reported last week took a little bit away from the awesome surprise it would have been seeing Ewan McGregor come out on stage at D23 announcing it. I mean, I probably would have fainted if I didn't know anything about it and he would have came on stage. Would have been such an awesome surprise to get that. But we kind of suspected it was coming. But still, I had a big smile on my face when it came out on stage, and he, was playing it up to where he got asked that question so much. Where he goes to Kathleen Kennedy, he goes, "Kathleen, I want you to ask me, will you be playing Obi-Wan Kenobi again?" And then when she asked him that, he had this, big relief of saying, "Yes, I will." And just the crowd erupted to cheers. So it was a cool way to do it. And the fact that it is officially confirmed now that we're getting an Obi-Wan TV series, man, I can't wait for it. It's going to start filming in 2020. They said all the scripts are done, and it'll take place 8 years after Revenge of the Sith. So, which, is right in the wheelhouse of the perfect time frame for the series to take place in. And man, I can't wait for it. I mean, Obi-Wan's my favorite Star Wars character. Ewan McGregor was fantastic in the role, and the fact that he's going to be back playing him again is going to be so amazing. I cannot wait for it. So yeah, to say I'm happy is an understatement. But to hold us over until the Obi-Wan series, we got The Mandalorian coming, and that trailer, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, they showed footage at Celebration earlier this year, but they didn't release it online. There was bootleg quality footage that came out, which was better than nothing for us fans who weren't there to see, but didn't quite capture to how amazing the show's going to look. And it does look amazing, man. It looks like you're watching a movie, and just wow, the production quality on it looks amazing. The Mandalorian, the costumes look so cool. Just the tone, the setting. I just can't wait for this series to begin also, and it starts when Disney Plus launches on November 12th. So a lot of great Star Wars stuff coming, man. I was really impressed with that trailer.
Yeah, the Mandalorian trailer blew me away. I didn't see any leaked footage or whatever. I just kind of wanted to see it as Disney wanted to present it.
Mm-hmm. You have more willpower than I do.
Man, I was really, really blown away. Forgot Carl Weathers was in the show. But my big concern was like, how are they going to do a Star Wars live action show and not make it look cheap?
Yep.
But yeah, this trailer totally made me forget about any sort of reservations I had about the show. It looks like a movie, which is a good thing. Also forgot Werner Herzog is in the TV show at the end. But yeah, it looks really good. So yeah, I'm completely sold on Disney Plus on day one.
Oh yeah, it was a given for me right away, but even more so now. I might just go ahead and do the annual subscription.
Yeah. So yeah, I can't wait for that show, and I only have to wait 2 weeks.
As far as new episodes, like when they're going to be released, or when you're
Disney Plus.
Oh well, about 3 months.
Oh,
comes out November 12th.
Oh yeah, why did I think it came out next month?
That would be awesome if it did, but still got a little bit of a wait to do.
I don't know. For some reason, I thought it was going to come out in September.
I wish.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are some cool stuff to get this past weekend. Man, so really excited about the future of Star Wars on TV and what more awesome stuff we're going to get alongside the movies. It's going to be great. So that put me back in a good mood after the Spider-Man news.
Good. I mean, I know a lot of people were sort of like really, really mad about the Spider-Man thing, but
yeah, there it was.
Yeah, you just got to realize that these companies are just looking to make money, and they're going to realize sooner or later, how that money is going to be made.
Yeah. On the flip side, I actually saw some people happy about it, which was surprising.
Really?
But everyone has their preference, and some people want Spider-Man just back by himself and let Sony have him. I mean, I don't agree with that, but if that's how they feel, I guess kudos to you for this being good news. So, but I don't know. We'll just
How
see where.
come? I mean, what's the?
Some people don't like how he was handled in the MCU, being with so connected with Iron Man, but it worked. I don't agree with that opinion. To me, it worked well for doing a Spider-Man story that had to be different because you already told kind of his origin story twice on his own. So you had to do a story that put him more in the mix with MCU characters, and who better to mix it up or to him be closest with than Iron Man, the character who is the central figure of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And this is what gets me. The whole thing about these two Spider-Man movies was that Tony Stark shepherding Spider-Man to become that face and central character of the MCU, which Spider-Man is in the Marvel Comics. He's the face of Marvel Comics. He's the central character, and they were kind of building him up to be that in the MCU now that Tony Stark is gone. And we might not see that now, which again adds to my frustration. But don't want to go into it any further. I said what I had to say. But let's get back on the positive side of things. So, yeah, with that, we can go ahead and go into our comic book reviews for this episode. And for this one, we're going to be reviewing Detective Comics number 1009 and Batman 76, which features a big ending for that issue of Batman 76, which I'll get to. But as always, got to throw out the spoiler warnings here. I'll be going into details on the events that happen in these comics. So if you haven't read them yet, you might want to hold off, read them, then come back to hear what I have to say. And for our rating scale for this episode, I was thinking crazy Oakland A stories that Dane brings up by reading books or something to that effect.
Yeah, that's it.
It seems appropriate. All right. So Detective Comics number 1009. And Detective Comics hasn't been my favorite these last few issues. I mean, which is surprising because I really love Peter Tomasi's writing and how he's handled Batman in the past, but these stories just haven't grabbed me in these last few issues. The last one was okay, was a one-off Joker story, but I got to say, I really like this issue. It's kicking off a story that feels different that I haven't read in the Batman comics, at least for a while. That looks like it's mainly going to focus on Bruce Wayne, but there's just a lot of fun moments throughout this issue. And I like how it begins with kind of a montage of Batman just taking down various criminals and thugs, and then leaving notes as he drops off the criminals at a police station or has them hanging on a light post. And he has a note saying what these villains have done and saying they'll confess, kind of a la Spider-Man, leaving a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man note. But then you have Alfred telling him, he needs to get some rest. He has a big day tomorrow. Kind of annoying Bruce. And as he gets home, he makes a joke to Ace saying, "Hey, Ace, do you want to become my next butler?" or something like that to the effect, to show it is a little annoyance with Alfred there, which you don't see all the time. But, if Batman has a busy night, a rough night, maybe Alfred could get out his nerve just a little bit. And it looks like he had a rough night because there's a really cool image of Batman just standing on a gargoyle with his suit kind of bloodied up and his fists all full with blood from pummeling criminals. And I will got to say that image is awesome. And the artwork just in general in this issue, I really loved by Christian Deuce, who, I felt really outdid himself in this art. Some great Batman shots here, just really well laid out and designed for this issue that I thought worked really, really well. So there's some fun moments here as we see Batman coming back after a long night, changes costumes, ready to go to bed at 6:05, he turns off the lights. And then at 6:07, Alfred's there to open up the curtains and say, rise and shine. Time to get breakfast on the table. You got a long day ahead of you. And Bruce just isn't having it. He just goes, "I'm going to kill you." And Alfred goes, "I have a good authority that Batman does not kill." So I just like the back and forth between Batman and Alfred there. It's that, playful annoyance that they have or that with each other during this instance. But then it turns out the main villain of the story is going to be Deadshot, who we see take on a new job from, we don't know who his employee is, but they send someone jumping out of an airplane to give him a drive with, his mission and his funds. And then Deadshot has to tie all loose ends and takes out that delivery jump pilot and just shoots him. And we're going to see him on his mission and who he's going to target. But then we get some more playful sequences of Batman to him anyway, a boring boards meeting at Wayne headquarters. Or I should say, in the comic, it's Gotham National Bank headquarters. So he's meeting up with a bunch of other CEOs. Lucius Fox is giving a boring presentation that Bruce doesn't want to be there. I like this playful side of Bruce we're getting in this issue. It kind of reminds me of the Bruce we see sometimes in Batman Begins, where he's, falling asleep at the boardroom table, or, playing, having some fun with the secretary while all the other executives are in a meeting. So it's that, playful side of Bruce that makes you think this guy cannot be Batman. So it was kind of fun to see that side of Batman. And it turns out these CEOs, they're all going to take a trip to Singapore, I believe. And they're all Batman, or Bruce has a great idea to have them all go on one plane, as he calls it, a plane pool. So all the CEOs are going to fly together, and not all of them are happy about it. And as we see him talk with Lucius Fox, the plane is going to go through this thunderstorm. And that's not his only problem, though, because it turns out one of the pilots is Floyd Lawton, aka Deadshot, whose mission took him here to be on this plane with a bunch of important people and businessmen and women, and he's about to take the plane hostage. But during that thunderstorm, some lightning strikes the plane and just causes mass destruction on there. People are flying out. Deadshot, his plan's pretty much ruined as he's flying all over the plane. And I like seeing Bruce doing what he can to save all the different people on the plane, especially Lucius and these other CEOs, getting them, back in their seats with their seatbelts on, pulling people back from being blown away. So it's cool to see Bruce in action as a hero without his Batman costume. And pretty much the issue ends with the plane crashing with Deadshot, with Bruce, and a bunch of businessmen stranded in, it looks like, this jungle. I don't remember to give the exact location of it, but they're in dire straits, nonetheless, because we see the last page, it's a plane in two pieces in the jungle. You see the snake slithering around, showing that these people are going to have a hard time trying to get off or get away from wherever they're at and having to deal with Deadshot. So it'll be interesting to see, if Batman or if Bruce and Deadshot have to work together to save these people or just to survive. So just a different scenario and situation that, you don't see Bruce in too much in these comic stories, or at least not in a while for me anyway. So I like how it was something different. There was some fun banter between Bruce and Alfred, Lucius, great artwork. So I really enjoyed this issue. I'm going to go and give it 4 out of 5 crazy Oakland A stories Dane gets by reading books. And I should say, too, there was a tag at the end of Mr. Freeze. They're setting up a story with Mr. Freeze, how he's going to be involved in the Year of the Villains promotion that DC has going on, and him reviving Nora. So it looks like he was able to revive her, and it's going to play a factor in a future story. So we'll see where that goes. But solid issue all the way around. But now we get to Batman number 77 as we continue the City of Bane arc, where, as you've heard me talk about on previous episodes, hasn't really grabbed me, hasn't gotten going. Seems like it's going through the motion of a lot of setup, but some big things happen here, and I think opinions are going to vary as far as to what happens. But it begins with Damian entering Gotham, because we know Bane put the warning out that none of the Bat family could enter Gotham, otherwise they'll kill Alfred. He's their hostage that they have, and his, I guess, trump card as far as keeping the city in line and not having to worry about any of Bat family members doing anything to try to take down the villains. But Damian doesn't care anymore. He's going to go in and try to take the city back. And he goes up against Gotham Girl. He's able to take her out by using some magic with Clarion the Witch Boy's magic wand, because Gotham Girl is very powerful, but he's able to subdue her with that magic wand. Then we see him take out Scarecrow and Zsasz, as there's a quote-unquote detectives roaming the streets of Gotham now. Damian takes them down. Then he goes after, the big fish, Thomas Wayne's Batman. And he's able to take down everyone pretty easily until he gets to Thomas Wayne. And that ends up being a cool fight sequence. Not only, both of them showing their skills, but I like the dialogue that they had here. Damian pretty much calling out Thomas Wayne's Batman as far as, like, you're no Batman. How could you do this? You let Bane take the city. You're a disgrace to the Batman name. You're pathetic. And you let all of this has been caused by you because of a button that you couldn't handle. Going back to the Watchman or the comedian button teased in, the Rebirth special, and of course the button crossover that Batman and Flash had. So just some great stuff there between Damian and his grandfather. Damian gets some good punches in there, but he unfortunately wasn't a match for Thomas Wayne, and Thomas is able to take him down. And while this is going on, we see what Bruce and Selena are up to as Bruce finally wakes up from, the coma state he was in. And it looks like they're in Paris sharing dinner, and Bruce is saying, kind of coming to terms with what happened, how he lost, but yet he has to go back to take his city. And Selena's trying to stop him, thinking, if you go back, you're going to die there. And Bruce goes, I know, but at least it'll die in Gotham with his mother and his father. And he's, to quote the line from The Dark Knight Returns, he goes, it'll be a good death. So Bruce is determined to go back there. And even though Selena tried to talk him out of it, she realizes she can't talk him out of it, but she figures out or tries to tell Bruce a way he can get back without, dying. And so they're kind of teasing. The last page of the comic is Bruce and Selena suited up in their Batman and Catwoman costume. And Selena is going to show Bruce a way to get revenge and get his city back. But that's not the big thing. The big thing that happens at the end, like I said, Thomas Wayne defeated Damian. He has him captured. He has him tied up to a chair. And then we just see these voices talking, but you don't see who it is. You see someone say, "This, understand, this isn't my choice. But we gave the warning. If you got any of the Bat family members come here, Alfred's going to die." And then you see the dialogue bubbles of Alfred talking, just saying, like, "Master, please no," because obviously he's trapped and has to refer to Thomas Wayne as his master now. And he goes, like, "Not in front of the boy. Like, I don't care what you do with me, just not in front of Damian." And then we see the image of Bane snapping Alfred's neck, thus killing him. And as far as we know right now, it looks like Alfred is dead. But again, it's comics, and we know that Psycho Pirate is going to play a big factor in the story and how he can manipulate people's minds and make them see things they don't want to see. So this all could be an illusion, and I wouldn't put it past Tom King and DC to do this without not actually killing Alfred. But I got to say, the death of Alfred is something I think would be very interesting to explore as far as the characterization, or to see what it does to Bruce as a character in the main DC continuity. Because there have been stories where Bruce Wayne has lost Alfred and what it can do to him. I mean, White Knight is the most recent example. But to have it be in the main DC continuity as far as Bruce losing Alfred, I think that'd be something very interesting to explore, because it could take Bruce down paths we've never seen him before, and just what his reaction would be to lose his father figure, one of his closest friends, and just family member he has, because really Alfred was his only family for so long, and he's been with him throughout his whole life. And to see how Bruce reacts to losing him, I think it'd be very interesting to explore that. So I'm not totally against killing off Alfred, as much as I love Alfred. I mean, he's an integral character and figure in Batman lore. It's not like I'm just glad he's dead, but just from a story-wise, and to see where they can do with Bruce as a character, exploring that avenue could be pretty interesting. And it's something I've been curious to see for a while now. So if they go this route, I wouldn't be opposed to having it stick for a while. But again, it's comics. It could all just be a ruse, and it could turn out at the end of this that Alfred's back. And I wouldn't be opposed to that either, because Alfred's great. I don't see him dead for so long. But part of me is just not satisfied with how it was done to have that effectiveness against Bruce as it could have had. Because the fact that Bruce wasn't there to see it, and now he's going to have to hear it or find out about it somehow, some way, might not have the emotional impact it could have been if Bruce actually saw Alfred die, because that could just make things even more dramatic for Bruce to experience, because it could be another parent he has to see killed in front of him, and what will that do to him mentally, and to see how that affects him moving forward and how he would recover from that. Because it's one thing to lose your parents as a kid. We obviously saw how that affected Bruce becoming Batman, but then to experience that again as Batman, losing another parent as Alfred is to him, like I said, it could be something very interesting to explore. But that aspect is gone now if Alfred really is dead, because Bruce didn't see it happen. And just to see that drive that Batman is going to have for wanting revenge on the death of Alfred, it looks like we're going to get that anyway, but I don't think it could be as impactful as it would have been if Bruce actually saw Alfred die. So kind of a mixed bag on this whole situation as far as Alfred seemingly being killed here. On one hand, I like the story avenues it can lead to regarding Batman and how he deals with this. But at the same time, I don't think it was handled the best way, with Batman not being there to see it, and having it potentially just be there for shock value, because it's a pretty gruesome image of Bane snapping Alfred's neck. I mean, that's got to be hard for anyone to see as a longtime Batman fan, seeing a staple like Alfred being taken out like that. So again, we'll see if it's all real. It could just be an illusion, or with Psycho Pirate being involved, we won't know. So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. But regardless, I think the City of Bane has finally picked up steam for me, where I'm excited to see, or anxious to see, what's going to happen next in the upcoming issues. So because of that, I'm going to give this issue 3.5 out of crazy Oakland A stories that Dane tells me by reading books. So yeah, we'll see where it goes from here, but definitely some big stuff if Alfred is indeed dead for the foreseeable future. We will see.
Like Spider-Man leaving the MCU.
See, that seems like a more dire outcome, because with comics, characters can come back like that.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a little more complicated to get Spider-Man back in the MCU than resurrecting Alfred if he is indeed dead.
Oh, yeah.
But with that, my hosting duties, because of the Yankees being swept by Oakland, is over. So I could go ahead and throw it to you, Dane, for the outro.
All right, just go over to BatmanUniverse.net, Facebook.com/BatmanUniverse, Twitter handles at BatmanUniverse, Tim's Twitter handles at TimG311. I'll say it since the Yankees got swept.
Thank you, Dane. Yeah, it's been a hard week.
Yeah. And my Twitter handles at DaneSaysBanana. Rate and review us on iTunes. And if you want to email the show, you can email the show at batfanswithoutpants@gmail.com. So like we say at the end of every single episode, Tim,
we love each and every one of you with our MCU spiderless hearts.
Wow. I don't know how you got all those words in there, Tim.
Yeah. I guess I had to say it in my head over and over to make it right.
Yeah. We'll see you guys next time.
See you next time, everybody.
Sunrise under Gotham, Crime Alley's a rich boy's tomb. Then the steaming cat, two faces of a coin. Scarecrow's frightened of a clown that's laughing boys. I am a Batman, I am a Batman, shine and signal, come out to play. I am a Batman, I am a Batman, bring on Batman, jump out your cave, 'cause I am a Batman, I am a Batman, shine that signal, come